The Ryukyu Islands, riʻuːkjuː, known in Japanese as the Nansei Islands and also known as the Ryukyu Arc, are a chain of Japanese islands that stretch southwest from Kyushu to Taiwan. The Ōsumi, Tokara, Amami, Okinawa, and Sakishima Islands, with Yonaguni the southernmost. The larger are mostly high islands and the smaller ones are mostly coral islands. The largest of the islands is Okinawa. The climate of the islands ranges from humid subtropical climate in the north to tropical rainforest climate in the south. Precipitation is very high, and is affected by the rainy season and typhoons. Except the outlying Daito Islands, the island chain has two major geologic boundaries: the Tokara Strait between the Tokara and Amami Islands, and the Kyushu Gap between the Okinawa and Ryukyu Islands. The islands beyond the Tokara Strait are characterized by the coral reefs. The Ōsumi and Tokara Islands, the northernmost of the islands, fall under the cultural sphere of the Kyushu region of Japan. The people are ethnically Japanese and speak a variation of the Kagoshima dialect of Japanese. The Amami, Okinawa, Ryukyu, and Yaeyama Islands have a native population collectively called the Ryukyuan people, named for the former Ryukyu kingdom that ruled them. The varied Ryukyuan languages are traditionally spoken on these islands, and the major islands have their own distinct languages. In modern times, the Japanese language is the primary language of the islands, with the Okinawan Japanese dialect prevalently spoken. The outlying Daito Islands were uninhabited until the Meiji period, when the development was started mainly by people from the Izu Islands south of Tokyo, with the people there speaking the Shiho language. Administratively, the islands are divided into Kagoshima Prefecture in the north and Okinawa Prefecture in the south, with the divide between the Amami and Okinawa Islands, with the Daito Islands part of Okinawa Prefecture. The northern islands are collectively called the Satsunan Islands, while the southern part of the chain are called the Ryukyu Islands in Japanese. Island subgrouping. The Ryūkyū are commonly divided into two or three primary groups, either administratively, with the northern Ryūkyū being the islands in Kagoshima Prefecture and the southern Ryūkyū being the islands in Okinawa Prefecture, or geologically, with the islands north of the Tokara Strait being the northern Ryūkyū, those between the Tokara Strait and Kyushu Gap being the central Ryūkyū, and those south of the Kyushu Gap being the southern Ryūkyū. Following of the grouping are names used by the Hydrographic and Oceanographic Department of the Japan Coast Guard. The islands are listed from north to south where possible. Nansei Islands, Satsunan Islands, Ōsumi Islands with Tanegashima, Yaku's, Kuchino Arabu, Majima in the northeastern group, Takeshima, Iojima, Uroshima in the northwestern group. Tokara Islands, Kuchinoshima, Nakanoshima, Gajijima, Suwanosejima, Akusekijima, Terajima, Kodakarajima, Takarajima. Amami Islands, Amami Oshima, Kikajima, Kekuromajima, Yoroshima, Akeshima, Tokunoshima, Okinawa-Abujima, Yorinjima. Ryukyu Islands, Okinawa Islands, Okinawa Island, Kumi, Ihaya, Izina, Aguni, i.e. Wotorishima. Kerama Islands, Tokashiki, Zamami, aka at Jerima. Sakishima Islands, Miyako Islands, Miyako-jima, Ikima, Ogami, Aribu, Shimoji, Kurima, Minatarama. Yaeyama Islands, Iriomote, Ishigaki, Takatomi, Kahama, Uroshima, Aragasuku, Hatoma, Ubujima, Hatorama. Yonaguni. Senkaku Islands, Ōsumi-jima, Kuba-jima, Taisho-jima, Kitako-jima, Minami-kojima, Daito Islands, Kita-daito, Minami-daito, Oki-daito. The Geospatial Information Authority of Japan, another government organization that is responsible for standardization of place names, disagrees with the Japan Coast Guard over some names and their extent, but the two are working on standardization. They agreed on February 15, 2010, to use Amami-guntu for the Amami Islands. Prior to that, Amami-shoto had also been used. Names and extents. The English and Japanese uses of the term Ryukyu differ. In English, the term Ryukyu may apply to the entire chain of islands, while in Japanese Ryukyu usually refers only to the islands that were previously part of the Ryukyu kingdom. Nansei Islands. Nansei Shoto is the official name for the whole island chain in Japanese. Japan has used the name on nautical charts since 1907. Based on the Japanese charts, the International Chart Series uses Nansei Shoto. Nansei literally means southwest, the direction of the island chain from mainland Japan. Some humanities scholars prefer the uncommon term Ryukyu for the entire island chain. In geology, however, the Ryukyu Arc includes subsurface structures such as the Okinawa Trough and extends to Kyushu. During the American occupation of Amami, the Japanese government objected to them being included under the name Ryukyu in English, because they worried that this might mean that the return of the Amami Islands to Japanese control would be delayed until the return of Okinawa. However, the American occupational government on Amami continued to be called the Provisional Government for the Northern Ryukyu Islands in English, though it was translated as Rinji Hokubu Nansei Shoto Seicho in Japanese. Ryukyu. The name of Ryukyu is strongly associated with the Ryukyu Kingdom, a highly centralized kingdom that originated from the Okinawa Islands and subjected the Miyako and Yaeyama Islands, and the Amami Islands for some time. The name is generally considered outdated in Japanese, although some entities of Okinawa still bear the name, such as the local National University. Geographically, the Ryukyu Islands cover the Okinawa, Miyako, and Yaeyama Islands. Some variant definitions include the Amami Islands and/or the Daito Islands. In contrast, the northern half of the island chain is referred to as the Satsunan Islands. Humanities scholars generally agree that the Amami, Okinawa, Miyako, and Yaeyama Islands share much cultural heritage, though they are characterized by a great degree of internal diversity as well. There is, however, no good name for the group. The native population do not have their own name, since they do not recognize themselves as a group this size. Ryukyu is the principal candidate because it roughly corresponds to the maximum extent of the Ryukyu kingdom. However, it is not necessarily considered neutral by the people of Amami, Miyako, and Yaeyama, who were marginalized under the Okinawa-centered kingdom. The Ōsumi and Tokara Islands are not included because they are culturally part of Kyushu. There is a high degree of confusion in use of Ryukyu in English literature. For example, Encyclopedia Britannica equates the Ryukyu Islands with Japanese Ryukyu Shoto and Nansei Shoto in the definition but limits its scope to the Amami, Okinawa, and Sakishima in the content. Historical usage. Ryukyu is an exonym and is not of self-designation. The word first appeared in the Book of Suai. Its obscure description of Ryukyu is the source of a never-ending scholarly debate over what was referred to by the name Taiwan, Okinawa, or both. Nevertheless, the Book of Suai shaped perceptions of Ryukyu for a long time. Ryukyu was considered a land of cannibals and aroused a feeling of dread among surrounding people. From Buddhist monk Kenshin, who traveled to Tang, China in 858, to an informant of the Hayato Ryukyu Kokuki who traveled to Song, China in 1243. Later, some Chinese sources used Great Ryukyu for Okinawa and Lesser Ryukyu for Taiwan. Okinawan forms of Ryukyu are riʻuːkjuː, duʻuːkjuː in Okinawan and riʻuːkjuː in the Kunigami language. An Okinawan man was recorded as having referred to himself as a duchu man during Commodore Matthew C. Perry's visit to the Ryukyu Kingdom in 1852. From about 1829 until the mid-20th century, the island's English name was spelled Luchu, Luchu, or Luchu. These spellings were based on the Chinese pronunciation of the characters, which in Mandarin is Liuqiu, as well as the Okinawan language's form riʻuːkjuː. Okinawa is originally a native name for the largest island in the island chain. The name came to be used for the prefecture that covers the southern half of the island chain. It never extends to Kagoshima Prefecture. Outside the prefecture, Okinawa Prefecture is simply referred to as Okinawa. In Okinawa Prefecture, however, Okinawa is strongly associated with Okinawa Island, and in this sense, Okinawa excludes the Miyako and Yaeyama Islands. People in the Yaeyama Islands would use the expression, "go to Okinawa," when they visit Okinawa Island. People from the Amami Islands, Kagoshima Prefecture, would also oppose being included in Okinawa. Some scholars feel the need to group the Amami and Okinawa Islands because Amami is closer to Okinawa in some respects, for example from a linguistic point of view, than Miyako and Yaeyama. They sometimes use Amami Okinawa. Quote, "They have no good single-word term for the group since the native population had not felt the need for such a concept." Southern Islands. The folklorist Kunio Yanagiita and his followers used Nanto. This term was originally used by the imperial court of ancient Japan. Yanagiita hypothesized that the Southern Islands was the origin of the Japanese people and preserved many elements that were subsequently lost in Japan. The term has fallen out of favor today.